Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ill Factor from beatacademy.com. Now, one of the most crucial things about producing music or writing your own music is creating a great melody. It's the one thing that keeps you playing a song over and over again. It's what allows your song to just have a great mass appeal and to be able to just be translated with so many different audiences all over the world. And that's the power of having a great melody. And sometimes it just doesn't come naturally or easy for a lot of us who are creating and writing our own music. But I'm going to share with you in this video 5 tips that are going to help you write better melodies. So let's dive right in. Now, the first tip to writing great melodies is understanding the palette that you're going to be using, the colors you're going to be using to paint that melody. And those colors come from your chords. The chords that you're going to be using, the chord progression, are kind of like your compass and telling you where to go and what notes to choose for your melodies that will really resonate well. So to kind of guide you through what I'm talking about, I'm going to use a program by Mixed and Key called Captain Chords. It's a really helpful tool to kind of get a understanding and really break down how to choose the right chords for the key signature that you're in and come up with really cool, unique progressions that can help boost your creativity and workflow. So let's go ahead and start by choosing a key. We're going to stay in A major. And in the key of A major, there are certain notes that can be played or that fit in that key and notes that don't belong in that key signature. Because technically you can play any note you want. You can have your neighbor's cat or squirrel run on your keyboard and that would be fine. But there's certain notes that really play well with the key of A major. So let's talk about chords for a little bit and let's break down the one chord here in the key of A major. Now, what I mean by one, I mean that the first note in an A major scale, that's going to be the one. And so the numbers like 4, 5, 3, all those numbers refer to the position of the note that belong in the scale of A major. So the formula to finding out the notes that belong in a chord would be 1, 3, and 5. So the A, the C sharp, and then the E. Because the A is the first note in the key of A major, C sharp is the third, and E is the fifth. So you kind of get the idea. So let's create a path for our melody by creating a chord progression. So we'll start with the 1, and then we'll add another chord here. And so let's experiment with the 4. So we'll go from the 1 chord to the 4th, which is the D major. So from A major to D major. And then let's go ahead and add another one. We'll go to the 6th chord and then maybe back to the 4th. And that gives us a whole complete phrase. So as you can see here, the notes in the chords of that chord progression that we use almost become like the palette of colors that we could choose to paint our melodies. And so that's how I like to picture it. So let me show you once again how we can go about creating our melodies using those chord progressions as a guideline. So here we have the green notes represent the chord progression that we created. And then the pink notes are going to represent the melody notes. So the chords will be highlighted in gray. Now we can start creating our melody by on the 1, the A, and that will be just a straightforward tonal lead to our melody. And we would go somewhere else. Or we can start the melody on the 3rd. And you could hear the tension there that it causes when you're on the 3rd. It's a little different. And then how about our melody starting on the 5th? And that's a bit brighter and a happier way to start your melody. You're starting on the 5th, and then you kind of want to go somewhere else with that melody. And then we could probably put another one here to land on the 1. And now here's our next chord. And this is kind of helpful to guide. All right, let's try the 5, 5, 1, and then to the D, which would be the 3rd of the next chord. So we're using these chord notes as a guideline. But now, could we venture out and not use notes that we don't see here? Of course. So let's try doing that. Let's choose from after that D and put a C sharp here. Even though we don't see it in the actual chord structure, we do know that it belongs in the key of A, so it's going to be fine. And it's a great setup to the next progression because we do see C sharp in the next progression. So it could be a great choice for our melody. Let's check it out. And then we can continue that note here. So once we're playing the C sharp there, let's try resolving over to the D again. So put that there. And those are the notes that we're going to choose for this phrase of these chord progressions. So as you can see, chords play a big role in creating a great melody. Now the second tip would be rhythm, and that is having a dynamic pattern to your melody. Let's focus in on the melody that we created earlier. Now here, as you can see, the melody is just pretty bland rhythmically. It's just right on the quarter note rhythm. Now technically there's nothing wrong with the timing of this pattern, but it's just really bland. So let's go ahead and change by adding some more notes and tweaking the pattern. So instead of just having that note held out, let's add another note. And then have the A move up and land a little bit earlier. Right here. And then start again. And then we're going to land on that D right there. So I've just put in a note to kind of step to, or like a leading tone to step to the next note in the chord progression. So we'll extend this out. And then another note here. Extend that out here. And then we'll go ahead and create another pattern here. And maybe even nudge the C over and add another D there. Let's see what that sounds like. Now the next tip is creating melodic phrases. And this is essential to having a complete melodic thought. Just like you would when reading a story, you would have a sentence with punctuation, commas, and period to say this is a complete thought. And that's what we need to do when we're creating our melodies. Often, too many times, I hear melodies and they just seem to be run-off sentences. Those melodies that kind of drift and don't have structure to them, and they just end up just wandering around. And so you want to create a unique structure with your melodic phrases and then create them in sort of a 2-bar or 4-bar phrase that bleed over to another melodic phrase and so on, so that you're completing each thought to form the overall paragraph or the story. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the chords that we have from earlier. And I created a new melody here, and I want to point out some key structures that create a melodic phrase. So with this new melody, you can hear there's some similarities to the beginning and the ending of that melody. When you heard it, it felt like, okay, it resolved. So if I were to hear it again, it makes sense. I can kind of get a feel to the beginning of the melody, and it does resolve to a conclusion. And that's what we're trying to get to with the creation of our melodic phrases. So let's focus in on just the melody here. So you'll notice at the beginning here, that beginning is also repeated here as well. It's just landing on two different notes there. And so you also have this part here happening here as well. So there's some similarities there. It's almost this call and response, but this feels like a completed sentence. And now for our next tip, we're going to go backwards a little bit and focus on intervals. And what I mean by that is the interval from note to note that you're going to be focusing on throughout your arrangement in your song. So the verses, or your verse melody, if you're doing a more standard pop arrangement in your production, would mostly focus on an interval. Maybe it could be on the 5 and the 3 of that chord progression. So for instance, maybe the verses, you could focus a lot and have your melody dance between the 5th and the 3rd. And then towards the choruses, you can focus a lot more on the tonic or the 1st. So there's going to be a lot more of the root note, which in this case would be the A, the 1, in the chorus, because that just helps bring it home. That just helps anchor it all in. So you can have different forms of the arrangement of your song, focus on unique intervals throughout that part of the song, and then use maybe the chorus or the drop or whatever it is that you're focusing on. The most climactic part of the melody would be in a unique interval where it's rooted a lot in the 1. So there's going to be a lot of A major going on in the chorus section. You also want to keep in mind too the range. You don't want to have the verses or the intervals or the pitches that you're using during the verses go higher than the chorus. Remember, what we're trying to do with our melody is create a dynamic journey. We're trying to take the listener on a journey. So no runoff sentences, and you want to keep the melodies interesting with melodic phrases. And then you want to make sure that the chorus, when you get to the chorus section, that the melody tends to go up higher than the range of the verses. And so those are very important things when structuring out your melody. And then tip number 5, and our last tip, might be a little obvious, but I can't stress enough how important it is to be a student of great melodies. You want to just listen all day to really good melodies. And one thing that I found very helpful for me personally is I would import a song into my DAW, into my project, one with a very catchy melody, one that I was just an earworm I couldn't get out of my head. And what I would do is I would play on a note, just similar to what we've been doing. I would play the notes on the piano of the melody, try to play it as best as I possibly can by ear. And then once I see in the melody, then I just take note of those intervals. So I take note, okay, they're going from a 1 to a 5, and then maybe a 5 to a 3, and just become a great student of good melodies. For some people, it just comes so naturally. You've been given the gift of having a great ear for melodies, and it'll just flow naturally for you. And you can sharpen that skill with exercises like this. And for some of you, you're just going to have to work a little bit harder to get your ear acquainted with, does this melody sound good? And you won't know because you're always basing your melodies by your own standard. So you need some kind of objective standard to gauge whether your melodies, have that kind of mass appeal, so to speak. So import songs, some of your favorite melodic songs that, and if you're just not, just get some of the top charting songs and put them into your DAW, map out the melodic notes, and then just see, oh, okay, I get it. That note is going from a 1 to a 3, and here's the pattern, and just become a student of that. And as you do that more and more often, your ears will naturally start to recognize, my melody, when I compare it to these melodies, it doesn't hold water, it doesn't stand up to that test. So I need to rethink my melodies and things like that. And that is probably the strongest thing that you could do right now to strengthen your process of creating great melodies. So I hope this video was helpful and encouraging for you. And as my gift to you for watching this video, I'd love to send you a sample pack loaded with construction kits, loops, sounds, and these are all 100% royalty free. So feel free to use them in your music and share that music with the rest of the world. It works on any DAW. You simply just click, drag and drop the sounds onto your DAW and you're good to go. Once again, these are yours absolutely free. So just click the link below in the description box to download this sound pack. Also, if you want more information about Mixed and Key and their plugins that I've featured in this video, you can click the link below in the description box as well. You visit www.beatacademy.com/pack to download that sample pack. And thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.